D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and it's just Adam Vingan right now. Willie Donick is handling his Predators broadcasting responsibilities. Derek Mason hit a little traffic on the way to the arena. So I am joined by our fearless leader, Chase McCabe. Hello, Chase.
Hello, I'm just down the street from you. I probably could have just walked up there, just walked into the arena. But yeah, I'm just down the street at the Omni Hotel. Happy to hang out for a second because we all know traffic in Nashville, but good to be on.
The Predators host the Chicago Blackhawks tonight. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Make sure you get to the game early. The Predators will honor David Poile, Shea Weber, and Pekka Rinne, all of whom were inducted into the inaugural class of the Golden Hall yesterday. Chase, you were at the luncheon at the Renaissance Hotel. You got to talk to David Poile, Shea Weber, and Pekka Rinne. Yep. A lot of Predators alum were there. What was that event like? I unfortunately was unable to attend.
It was really cool. What's funny is like I obviously always love being able to talk to David and it was cool to talk to Pekka because it had been a while. But I was really looking forward to sitting down with Shea Weber because I have not seen him, or talked to him really since he was still with Montreal. And so it was good to catch up with him. And Shea, that he is he doesn't like to talk about himself. It's
Certainly
always been team first. And I brought that up to him and he kind of gave me a smile and said, yep. And he goes like, this has all been very weird for me, but it's also at the same time very, very cool. And just to have Pekka and Shea and Mike Fisher and James Neal, Eric Nystrom, a lot of those guys from that run, from when kind of the end of the Trotz era and then the Peter Laviolette era, all in the same room, and then a lot of the current team, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, UC Saros, they were all there. It was really neat to see, and just a lot of nostalgia. And then there were even guys that had come back from the old days. Cliff Ronning was one of those that was there. So it was cool, and I think Pekka and Shea really were able to take it in. David, I think, has done he's allowed himself since his retirement to enjoy this and enjoy these accolades because he was the same way. He didn't like to make it about him. It was always about the Predators. But, he's really had a good time with it. So it was cool to see.
Shea Weber has been the center of attention since being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. After all of this attention, I'm sure he's going to go back to British Columbia and hide in the woods for several months.
Yeah,
that's where he is at his that's where he is at his most comfortable, is just in solitude. So
I got a question. I got a question for you.
Sure.
Because how many years did you cover him?
He was traded in the summer of 2016, so it would have been two seasons, I would say.
So you got to know him pretty well and
yes.
You know what he was about. Could you see him being a coach? Because I could.
That's a good question. Part of me could see him coaching. A part of me could see him, as I said, just heading into the woods and throwing his cell phone in the river and losing all touch.
Like Mike Fisher, which is what Mike is pretty much like. What was funny is I asked somebody, hey, is Mike going to be here? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, he's probably in a deer stand somewhere. But he came walking in, and he actually got up on the stage and inducted Shea. And so that was really cool. They had, various people. So it was Brent Peterson that inducted David. And then Mitch Korn and Ben Vanderklok inducted Pekka. And then Mike Fisher came up and inducted Shea. Mitch Korn, who I know you probably missed him, actually, but he was fantastic and always a good quote. Had jokes and everything. And then Ben Vanderklok was able to point out that Pekka won the Vezina under him and not Mitch. So
right.
That was, that was cool. But I could see it. I could see Shea coaching. Now, he might be an intense coach, but I could certainly see it.
I certainly wouldn't want to be the little kid on Shea Weber's team if he's coaching Pee Wee hockey.
Oh, yeah.
But
Well, he's coaching his kids.
Okay.
He did tell me that like that's kind of what he's been doing, that he's been coaching his kids, with baseball and hockey.
So make sure to get here on time for the game tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, as the Predators honor Shea Weber, Pecorine, and David Boyle for being inducted into the Golden Hall. Chase, I know that you and Big Joe have talked a lot about this. All of our shows have talked a lot about this. We're going to continue to talk a lot about this. The quarterback situation for the Tennessee Titans. What to do? Draft a quarterback number 1 overall, trade down, sign a veteran quarterback. By the way, I have a fun exercise for Derek and Willie when they get here, starting at the top of the 12 o'clock hour. And they have no idea what it is. I did not want them to prepare. So,
I'll be listening.
So at 12 o'clock, be prepared for that. But I was looking at this list on ESPN.com. It was a consensus rankings from Mel Kiper Jr., Jordan Reed, Matt Miller, and Field Yates, who are ESPN's top 4 NFL draft analysts. And they graded all of the players at every position, but they had a consensus overall ranking, regardless of position. So for all of them, as Derek Mason enters the building, for all of them, the number 1 consensus player in this draft class is Travis Hunter with an average of 1.3.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Followed by Abdul Carter, the edge rusher from Penn State, with an average ranking of 2. Followed by Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan, at 3. There are no quarterbacks in this top 10 overall ranking. And that is what concerns me about the Titans choosing a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. I know that the Titans need a quarterback. Who knows if and when the Titans will be back in this position at the top of the draft. So you want to take advantage of it if that means drafting Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. But since neither of them appears to be that surefire number 1 overall pick, as Derek Mason joins the fray. Hello, Derek. Chase is with us as well.
Hey, Chase,
Hi,
I was listening.
This gives me some concern about taking a quarterback at the top of the draft. I know that not every draft is a quarterback draft, but when I look at these rankings, I don't see a lot of, Shedeur Sanders absolutely has to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And that kind of gives me some pause about what the Titans should do.
Yeah, and I'm glad Derek's here to hear me say this, because I want to know if you agree or disagree. I feel like too many times teams and fans, but teams mainly, fall into the trap of just because you have the number 1 overall pick means you have to take a quarterback, no matter who that quarterback is. But because it's viewed as the most important position on the team, you have to spend that number 1 pick on a quarterback. Now, we know teams don't do that sometimes, but I don't think that's the case. To me, if you have the number 1 overall pick, you have the luxury of drafting, in your mind, the best player in this draft. You don't draft for need. You get the best freaking guy on the board, because that guy is supposed to be a game-changing player.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But it also depends on Chase and Adam. What are your needs?
Sure.
Just because, and typically the teams that are in the top 2 positions, they need a quarterback. The reason why their season, end up going the way it did is because probably more than likely the quarterback position didn't play well enough. And then sometimes you're looking to make the change, and you're looking to make the change at that particular position. So when you have the number 1 pick, people just assume that you're going to take a quarterback because you're in this position more than likely because you don't have a quarterback. What I see here is this, and I think we all fall prey to it, no matter what. You can say you don't, but then if you sort of listen to yourself after a while, it's like, yeah, I sort of fall into that sort of category as well. It's the category of finding an elite quarterback, finding a Patrick Mahomes, finding a, Joe Burrow. Every draft doesn't have a Joe Burrow, a Patrick Mahomes, a Trevor Lawrence. Every draft doesn't have that. So when you have the number 1 pick and people just assume, well, you can't take that guy because he's not ranked. Why isn't he ranked? Isn't he ranked high because he's not a Patrick Mahomes? Again, everybody can't pick a Patrick Mahomes. What you're trying to do at that position, if indeed you need a quarterback, you're trying to find someone that plays the position the way it needs to be played. He doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He could be Jared Goff. You know,
Sure.
Jared Goff isn't in Patrick Mahomes' stratosphere, but Jared Goff had his team in the NFC Championship last year, and it seems like they're back. They're on their way to making it back again. He isn't what we would call that elite quarterback.
Yeah, but
But
that's
he's
the
good
game,
enough.
though.
Yeah, but
That's the
he's
game,
good
though,
at-
because Jared Goff went number 1 overall, and Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes went 10th.
That's what, and that's what I'm saying. That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. You don't necessarily have to find Patrick Mahomes at number 1. You just need to find somebody that can lead your franchise and is not going to be the reason you're losing. That's what you're doing. The reason that the Titans didn't have to find a quarterback 3 or 4 years ago, because they had Ryan Tannehill, and more times than not, he was the reason they won, not the reason they lost. I give it the Cincinnati game, but throughout his career here, when he was healthy, he won more than he lost. So if you can just find a quarterback that's going to win you games, that is not going to lose you games, that's a win scenario for me. But I think everyone just automatically thinks that since you had a number 1 guy, means you have the number 1 pick, you got to find a Patrick Mahomes, or you have to find that elite quarterback that nobody else has. There's only 2 of those, maybe 3 of those guys in the NFL right now when you're talking elite status.
Chase, thank you, my friend, for sticking around for
Thank
a
you,
little bit
Chase.
longer.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
we will release you so that
Into
you
the
can-
wild.
Yes, so that
Hey,
you can
Derek.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Derek, be
Yes.
sure to text your boy Joe Flacco. It's his birthday.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
How old is he today?
40.
Joe is 40.
Oh,
I said 41 when y'all were, and I was like, dang it, he's 40.
Yeah.
you should know that. How dare you not know Joe Flacco's actual birthday? Chase, thank you for filling in for just a few minutes.
No problem. See you guys.
Yep.
So, Derek, one thing about mock draft season that I'm always a bit cautious of is when people compare draft prospects to pro players, because usually those pro comparisons are not, they're a bit lofty.
Uh-huh.
Let me give you an example. Dane Brugler, who is, in my opinion, one of the best NFL draft analysts, he works for The Athletic. He released his latest mock draft yesterday. He has the Titans taking Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. This is part of the reason why he made that selection. Quote, "In this mock, the Titans decide Ward is an upgrade over their current quarterback situation. His loose play style won't be for everyone, but his ability to create explosive plays and the gradual improvements he has shown each year are promising aspects of his profile." And here's the key sentence. "Some scouts have compared Ward's upside to that of Steve McNair, which would be music to the ears of fans in Nashville." Now, when I read that, like, do we truly believe that Cam Ward could one day become Steve McNair? I don't know the answer to that, but fortunately, I have someone sitting next to me who played with Steve McNair. So when you hear Dane Brugler of The Athletic say that some scouts have compared Ward's upside to that of Steve McNair, what do you make of that? Because as I said, that's a lofty projection. And I feel that sometimes in these mock drafts, the analysts, they shoot for the stars. This player could compare to this excellent pro. But of course, we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't. And it's hard to, because Steve came in a different time. Steve stepped on the scene and was, the guy at Elkhorn State. Steve was doing things back then that a lot of quarterbacks were not doing, wasn't doing. You can't say that for Cam Ward right now. He's sort of fitting in with the mold of quarterbacks that we're starting to see now because of a guy like Steve McNair. So I think that's unfair to Cam Ward to say, well, his comparison is Steve McNair. Well, man, the dude hadn't even gotten the NFL yet. And I understand why they do it. I mean, if you're just talking about the makeup, the height, build, weight, the ability to get outside the pocket and do some things, I understand that. But to me, I think you're always setting yourself up, because someone can think He plays like this guy or that guy. He's going to come in. He's going to be his own individual, and hopefully he can sort of make a mark or carve out a niche in this league. That people look to him not as a Steve McNair like quarterback, but just look at him as he's Cam Ward. This is, he sort of fits in the mode of what we are looking for in a quarterback right now. So, but I can understand why they would make that comparison. But so if he doesn't win co-MVP, if he doesn't take his team to a Super Bowl, then is it a bust? I don't think so. I just think, guys and what they ultimately achieve in this league is, it's two things. It's about longevity, one, and it's about luck, man. You got to have a bunch of luck and a bunch of prayers, because this is a violent physical sport. So let him be who he's ultimately going to be. But I can understand the comparisons with Steve McNair. And if they were to draft Cam Ward and he became Steve McNair, then I'd take that all day.
That would be great for the
Yes,
Titans if
yes.
they had another Steve McNair. I saw another pro comparison for Cam Ward, Jameis Winston, which I feel is more attainable than Steve McNair. This is not just isolated to football. We see it in all mock drafts. This player has the upside of this excellent first team All NBA player. Well, I mean, the reason why that player is a first team All NBA player is because he's a special player. We don't know if this draft prospect is going to be as good as this All Pro. We don't know that. But I have noticed, though, that a lot of the mock drafts that I skimmed through yesterday, the majority of them had Cam Ward at number one. I don't recall seeing one that had Shedeur Sanders going number one.
And I think this thing is, as Stephen A would say, fluid. This thing is very fluid right now. Today it's Cam Ward. Tomorrow it's going to be Justin Hunter. After that, it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. Then it's going to be Abdul Carter.
It's going to change
somebody
a
else
lot.
may jump up to that spot. It's just everything right now. You take it for what it's worth. But as we start getting closer and closer to the process, the actual draft, I think a lot of things will start coming into play, because you got to understand. Listen, we haven't even went through free agency yet.
Nope.
So just to assume that, this guy will be taken first overall. Well, let's get through free agency, because free agency may tell us something different depending on what teams do.
615-737-1025. Of course, we're going to talk a lot about the Titans quarterback situation between now and the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Because the NFL draft, I should say, is not right around the corner. But when I see these rankings, these consensus rankings of the top prospects, I see a top 10 on ESPN.com, and none of the quarterbacks are in that top 10. It gets me a bit concerned. But as Derek said, a lot can change between now and April. 615-737-1025. Programming note: Elliot Freeman of Sportsnet, who usually joins us on Thursdays at 1 o'clock, he will join us tomorrow. And scheduling conflict for Elliot Freeman. We will talk some Predators today, but Elliot Freeman will join us tomorrow instead of the usual 1 o'clock on Thursday. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, there is something that the Titans have not done since the season ended that has a lot of people wondering why. We'll do that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingate, 1025, 1063, The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Predators and Blackhawks tonight live from Bridgestone Arena. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. David Poyle, Shea Weber, and Pekka Rinne will be honored after being inducted into the Golden Hall yesterday in a luncheon at the Renaissance Hotel. Derek, there is one thing that the Titans have not done since their season ended that I think has surprised a lot of people.
Mhm.
They have made 0 changes to their coaching staff. When the season ended, we anticipated the Titans would let go of someone on the coaching staff. I think we all expected it to be Colt Anderson, the special teams coordinator. But as of now, there have been no coaching changes. So Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports was on Robbie and Rexroad this morning, and Joe asked Charles Robinson this question: what's weirder, the idea of a 3-14 team not making any changes on the coaching staff, or a team that's going to make changes on the coaching staff waiting for 2 weeks after the season to do so? That was Joe Rexroad's question to Charles Robinson. This was part of Charles Robinson's answer to that question. That was Charles Robinson this morning on Robbie and Rexroad. A little bit spicy from Charles Robinson as Willie Donick joins the desk. This idea,
hello, gentlemen.
This idea that the Titans could be waiting to hire their general manager and then let that general manager, in conjunction with Chad Brinker, decide on the Titans coaching staff. So what do we think about Charles Robinson's comments there about how Chad Brinker, he needs to look out for himself, and that do the Titans owe this coaching staff anything, considering the record they had last year?
Listen,
this past season.
Brinker's job is not in jeopardy. Nahil made that perfectly clear. They all made that perfectly clear. So Brinker is not operating, I don't think, from a position of trying to sort of keep my job, trying to survive around here. He's not operating from that standpoint, because I think in his mind, he's safe. Regardless of what goes on, he's safe. So, I don't think Brinker, if indeed you're going to, because I understand it seems like he's going to be the guy that's in control of everything. And I understand that, but there has to be a part of the team that you allow to be Brian Callahan's decisions. And I think when Brian Callahan took the job, he was under that assumption that I was going to be able to hire and fire the coaches that I deemed that I needed to. And at this present time, he doesn't feel he needs to go out and fire anybody. I alluded to this before the end of the season. Like, don't just think that, it's just a foregone conclusion that the special teams coach is gone. Did y'all hear what Brian Callahan was saying before the end of the season? Or was anybody even paying attention? Because he was telling you that, hey, my special teams unit has improved. We moved guys around. We've gotten better on the punt coverage. We've gotten better on the kickoff coverage. These are the things that were Achilles heels to the Tennessee Titans at the beginning of the season. And he made it seem like, hey, we are back on track. We made a couple of moves in regards to our roster and put a couple more guys in place. And now we're good. But everybody just thought that, oh, he's gone for what happened in the first half of the season. No, he was telling you, I am, if indeed I do make a decision, it's not going to be a harsh and rushed one. But I don't think he's going to fire anybody because, again, he's probably under the assumption that, hell, it don't matter. More than likely, I'm gone. If I don't take this team to the playoffs, they're going to be looking to get another coach. So I'm not going to sit here and as my coaches improve throughout the season, i.e. the special teams coach, I'm then not going to say, nope, I'm done with him and bring somebody else in. What if there's nobody else right now to bring in? That's my thing. He may want to bring in somebody. There may not be somebody to bring in right now. Maybe in another week, there's a coach that ends up leaving, get fired, or he's able to pry away from another team. But at this moment, he's like, I'm good with what I have unless something much better comes along.
All right, let's start with one philosophical question. Because I can tell you from history of the Titans that Floyd Reese and Jeff Fisher, who stayed together.
Yeah.
Say what you will about the relationship. Floyd Reese hired Jeff Fisher as the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
They were together as coach and GM for double-digit years. I can't remember how many years it was. I think it was 12 to 14, somewhere in there, before Floyd Reese was let go. Jeff Fisher stayed on a couple years. Okay, so they outlasted tons and tons, way beyond the average. But they did not always see eye to eye. One of the things that happened early was Jeff Fisher wanted to he was loyal to his assistant coaches. And I think Floyd Reese was saying, hey, you know, whatever it was, special teams, shaky, should you make a change here? Jeff Fisher really battled. It went directly to Bud Adams and said, I want control over my assistant coaches. Now, Jeff Fisher had put in some time as the head coach by then, unlike Brian Callahan, who was a first-year coach, probably doesn't have a lot of leverage right now. But I'll ask you philosophically, both of you, should the head coach have the say in his assistant's coach?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't want to make changes, he shouldn't have to make changes.
Absolutely.
So that's my question. Does the GM have the right to go to a coach and say, especially where Brinker is, because he has no skins on the wall either, right?
Yep.
He has as many skins on the wall as Callahan. Zero.
Yeah.
So should Brinker be able to go to the coach and say, hey, man, you got to make changes? Or does the owner – obviously the owner can do whatever she wants, right?
Yeah.
She could go in there and say, you got to fire somebody. Hey, man, we can't come back with the same coaching staff. We went 3-14. That doesn't look good. But to me, the head coach should make that call. That's my philosophy.
No, and I'm
now, if he wants to sync with his guys, he syncs with his guys.
Hey, I agree with you. It's not like Brinker, at least to me, he's not trying to preserve his job. Like, he's not thinking like, if I don't get this right, I'm gone next year. It seems like he's okay. So to me, I don't think he's going – I hope that he doesn't force Callahan to make a decision he doesn't want to make, regardless if they have a GM in place or not. This is his staff. My thing is either you're going to rise and shine with this staff or you're going to fail with the staff. Either or, this is your decision. If it doesn't work, you know you're gone. But if it does, then okay.
Yeah.
Then I'm sure allow Callahan to make the decision based upon the information you're giving him.
And I do think I have seen head coaches at the college level be forced by an athletic director or whatever. Hey, look, man, you got to fire X or I'll fire you. And the coach says, all right, fire me. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be disloyal to a guy that I believe in. I have seen it come to that for sure. So I do think that is a big philosophical question. And then here's my second question. When we hear all this stuff, here we are 2 weeks later. Are we saying that Chad Brinker has not sat down with Brian Callahan to discuss these matters and say, okay, let's talk about the coaching staff. You like your guys? Here's what I'm seeing. Obviously, our special teams was bad. Let's talk about Colt Anderson. Do you believe in him? Where are the improvements that you're seeing? You want to keep him? Tell me why. these are very reasonable conversations. Have they had these conversations?
Well, we don't know because
they better have had these conversations by now.
But the last we heard from Callahan, he had not talked to anyone. You know, he hadn't even really talked to his coaching staff about, you know, evaluations at that point.
Yeah,
They were
that
just
was the
doing
day
that was the
after
day
the
after
season.
the
Exactly.
season. But here
So
we are.
Exactly. So I do hope. And again, it seems like the way everything was presented last year, and it seems like that all could have been a facade, but the way it was presented last year when they hired Brian Callahan was what? He's in control of his staff. Like, that's it. Like, the play, like, we're going to make sure we get and do what's profitable and what's best for the team. He has control over his coaching staff. That's what I thought. I could be completely wrong on this. But if he has control over his coaching staff, then allow him to keep, retain, or fire who he chooses. But he understands that, listen, if it doesn't work, you will be out of a job, you know? Because if you fired him, it still doesn't work, who's out of a job still?
Right.
Brian Callahan.
It really shouldn't be fear of losing your job.
Exactly.
At this point, this team is at ground zero. They're rebuilding. They've got to work together to solve these problems. They've got a big hill full of issues that they got to get solved one by one.
Man.
It's a mountain.
It's a mountain.
It is. But as we said before, in this league, it's not that hard to go from being really bad to mediocre. What's hard is to get to where the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills are right now, a window of 5, 6, 7 years where you're in there every year, right? That's what you're trying to get to. And they're a long way from that. But you go one at a time, right? But let's start by being on the same page. Like, oh, if you don't do this, hey, just know if you don't get this done, you're getting fired. That's not a good way to build from they have to work together here.
615-737-1025. What are your thoughts on the fact that the Tennessee Titans have not made any changes to their coaching staff?
You got to fire everybody. I mean, that to me, that's not the do this or you got to be fired. That's not how you build.
No.
But that's how sports talk radio works sometimes. That's how fans work sometimes.
Indeed. And we are here to service the fans after all. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Coming up at noon, I have an exercise for all of us to do. Willie and Derek have no idea what it is. So we will... I did not want them to prepare.
Good.
So coming up at noon, and I'm going to play along too, even though
Won't
I
be
know...
the first time.
Hold on.
So-
Wait, he said he didn't want us to prepare, but he's going to play along, and he's prepared.
Yeah. So this is like a pop quiz.
Well,
I'm
I mean,
having-
I'm prepared
I'm
in the
having
sense...
sweats thinking back to like English class. We're gonna have a pop quiz on chapters 1 through 3. Oh,
I'm
man,
prepared
I
in
did
the
not read
sense-
chapters 1 through 3. What do I do?
I'm prepared in the sense that I had to put the exercise together. So I might play along as
I
well.
didn't
But
get
it's,
that far. Chapter 1.
How about chapter 1?
I used to have
What part of chapter 1?
my
Beginning.
my freshman year in college. I had a like a philosophy class where a lot of the grades were on pop quizzes, and you never knew, of course, when those pop quizzes would come. Sometimes you wouldn't have a pop quiz once every 3 weeks. Sometimes you would have a pop quiz 3 classes in a row.
Oh yeah.
And you never knew. And there would be times where I would read and go, all right, I am ready in case we have a pop quiz today. Then there was no pop quiz. And then I would think to myself, I'm not going to read the next chapter because there's not going to be a pop quiz. Oh, it's time for a pop quiz. So I
hate teachers
Or
like
as they
that.
used to say in the show, "What's happening with Roger Rerun? A surprise test. A surprise test."
is that better or worse than a
Yeah,
pop quiz?
Exactly.
So the
There
Tennessee
was one time
Titans.
that they found the surprise test in advance.
Oh,
And
I
that put
remember
them in a
that
tough spot. Put them in a tough
Mhm.
spot. Do you look at the surprise test? You found it.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be in there, but you found it.
see, sitcoms back then, they wanted to teach you
Yes,
something.
there was a life lesson in there.
They wanted to teach
I learned
you
a lot of
something.
life lessons from Raj and Rerun.
You don't,
You
lear-
don't
Wayne.
learn none now.
you don't learn
that.
anything
Nah.
from watching television now. But anyway, the Tennessee Titans have not made any changes to their coaching staff. And one question that I have is just how much of a leash Brian Callahan is going to get this season. We've heard what Burke Nihill and Chad Brinker have said about Brian Callahan. Willie, we talked about that with Teron Davenport the other day. We referenced his story he wrote for ESPN.com last week with some stern words for Brian Callahan from Burke Nihill. We've heard from Jared that people he speaks to say that Chad Brinker didn't want Brian Callahan back as head coach. So, assuming everybody comes back, his entire coaching staff, and of course Brian Callahan, who we know is coming back, I'm curious about how much leeway he is going to get. If this thing goes off the rails again, as it did this past season, will the Titans, who have been suddenly preaching patience, will they be patient with Brian Callahan, or will their desire for short-term gain lead to Brian Callahan being fired midway through his second season? I'm very curious about that.
We'll find out next time.
We
Yeah.
will find out next time.
Well, listen, they're sort of talking out of both sides of their mouth, at
Mhm.
least Burke Nihill, and Brinker, obviously. They say, well, we want patience. We're going to practice patience. We're going to build. This is what we're going to do. But then they also say Brian Callahan understands and knows he will be held accountable. Well, what does that constitute as? Like, okay, if I win 6 or 7 games, am I still out of here because it's not enough games? I understand being held accountable. Everybody should, especially when you have a high profile job like that. But also, if that's the case for me, shouldn't it be the case for you and you as well? But it just seems like everything is directed toward Brian Callahan. So I don't know what else to say.
It
I
works
know
in
coaches.
cycles.
Yeah,
I
It
know
works in
coaches.
cycles.
I know I've known a lot of coaches over the years. And man, I know a few that would be absolutely on fire privately that you see Burke Nihill with that quote.
Exactly.
That quote would irk so many good coaches that I know. Hold me accountable?
Mhm.
You think I don't hold myself accountable? Like,
That
think
quote,
about-
that
think
quote, by
about
the
it.
way, that quote, by the way, from Teron Davenport, for those who did not see this last week, this is from Burke Nihill. Quote, they want to see growth and they'll support Callahan in that growth. Speaking of the higher ups with the Titans, but they're going to hold him accountable, end quote.
Right. So
The
that
who is the higher ups? Because it's obvious when he say higher ups, he means somebody higher. Is it just Amy?
Well, but this is the DNA of a coach, in my experience. When somebody who has never coached says something like that, we're going to hold him accountable.
Mhm.
What does that guy know about coaching? What does that guy know about being in a locker room, the support staff, how you build a culture? When you're struggling, it's so easy from the top to say, oh, we're going to hold him accountable, because he's trying to placate to the fans.
Mhm.
He's trying to quiet everybody down. Say, oh, we're trying to do stuff here. You know, we went 3-14. We're not going to stand pat. And I understand that. But when you take a shot at the coach like that and you've never coached, that would frost me big time if I were in Callahan's shoes. Now, you can't do much about it, right? You got to – he's your boss. You got to kind of take it. But, man, that would rub me the wrong way.
And listen, it should, because it seems like everyone else is on a different timeline than Brian Callahan. It's like Brian Callahan, you have to, and I'm sure Brian Callahan understands that. Like, listen, I understand I have to show improvement, and I have to
Should go without saying
exactly. But I have to hold.
But let's not scold him like he's a fifth grader or something.
But this is something that
we're going to hold you accountable, Brian. Well, no, duh.
But it seems like that you say that because you don't think the other regime held him accountable. That so you wanted to, just like the whole building through the draft, wanting to, you act like, okay, that wasn't also the thought of the last GM. So he wasn't thinking like us. This is how we're thinking now. You know, it's build through the draft and to let these guys, you know, progress and be the players they're going to be. Again, wasn't that the message last year? If indeed y'all would allow him to say what the message was last year, you know, I'm sure that was the message. So to me, it's Brinkert is going to do what he's going to do regardless. I believe whoever the GM ultimately is going to be, you know, it's going to be somebody that sort of follow along with what Brinkert is thinking.
Mark in Nashville. Our friend Mark is on the phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Mark, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, fellas? Adam, G. Mace, Willie, how y'all doing, man?
Doing
Good, Mark.
Hey, there's no question, no doubt about this. Brian Callahan's going to go into the season as a lame duck coach. I mean, we all know that. He doesn't have the players or the personnel. You can't get a playoff out of this team next year. They're not even going to be close. They got too many needs to fill over on that roster. I mean, if he can get 6-7 wins out of that team, I would give him another year. But he's in a bad situation with Brinker and that those guys in management and stuff. And I just don't see that happening for him, man. He might well just told him he resigns, because it's not fair what they're putting on him right now. He's just in almost a no-win situation there with the Titans. So I don't see that happening for him, man. That's a tough situation for him to be in, but I do think he's a lame duck coach. But D-Mace, we're going to get something straight while I got you on the phone.
Oh.
You know I don't question you much.
Yeah,
Man, you know Jared Goff is top 5. Jared Goff is elite, man.
Hey,
you know
listen,
he is. Jared
Jared Goff has
You
his
know he
team
is.
where they're at now. So listen, I'm not gonna argue with you.
Yeah, he's elite. He's gonna go top 5. I gotta put him at number 5. But I don't disagree with you a lot, D-May. Got too much respect for you, Willie and Adam. But hey, man, y'all have a good day. And that's all I wish Brian Callahan well this season, because he's gonna damn sure need it.
Thanks for the call, Mark.
And quickly, you know, because we are assuming that, you know, because of things that may have, you know, been forwarded to other people, we just assume that, you know, this is not a good working relationship, that Brian Callahan, this is it for him. But we're assuming that. Why? Because the Titans aren't saying anything else. They're doing and operating in a fashion that whatever's coming out of that building, whatever's leaking out of that building, you know, it's like you got to believe it, because they're not trying to debunk it or anything else. They're just going about their business as if, hey, listen, you know, what's going on in the building? You know, what people are saying, potentially what's going on in the building, we don't care. We're going to operate, you know, the way we choose and feel they operate. So it's the Titans' fault that we're thinking the way we're thinking in regards to Brian Callahan, because it may not even be that way, but I doubt it.
They certainly have not been effusive in their praise of Brian
Exactly.
Callahan since the season ended.
Mhm.
They have not given him the stamp of approval. He's a good young coach. It was a rough season, but we
Yeah.
believe in him. We haven't heard any of that really.
I agree. And if they're not aware of that, they need to check and see how their quotes have been received. And they're only really quotes. They have not gone to face the music.
That's
and
that's a big
answered-
part of it as well.
Answered questions. Brian Callahan has.
Yeah.
He's taken all the heat. All the heat. And he said, look, I got to do better. He's handled it really well, I think, for a young head coach, first year. The other guys don't. They sit back and they're like, we got to hold people accountable. Well, how about facing the music yourself a little bit? Clarify yourself. Otherwise, it does come across, like you said, Adam, there's a perception that they're not really high on a young head coach that they knew was a young head coach and had never coached before. And I would honestly ask myself this question. If I'm Nihil and if I am Brinker, did you really give him a chance? Did he really have a chance to succeed with what he had, given what transpired? Are you really putting Will Levis's failures on the coach?
Mhm.
Now, there are other things you can actually say, yeah, okay, let's take a look at the penalties. Let's take a look at the turnovers.
Mhm.
How much is that attributed to the coach? That's a philosophical question that I think is fair. But he is a first-year head coach
Mhm.
that wasn't given a stacked deck at all.
You'll be able, I mean, hopefully we will be able to ask some of these questions once they hire a GM, because you just figure once you hire a GM, Brinker, and or Nihil will be on that stage. Hopefully it's Brinker will be on that stage, but I'm sure this is what he's going to do. He's going to say what he needs to say and get off very quickly and let the GM talk. That's what he's going to do.
We will find out soon enough as the Titans are whittling down their list of general manager candidates. 615-737-1025. All right, coming up next, I have an exercise for Willie and Derek, a pop quiz, a surprise test. And I want you guys to play along as well. I'll explain what it is coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The game.
Hey, don't go through another year with high interest debt. Let Loan Pronto wipe it out. Willie Donick here. Loan Pronto's rapid equity loan is what I've been talking about a lot. It makes it easy to pay off your credit cards or tackle that home improvement project, and you can get it quick. Get that cash in your pocket and get things moving. No appraisals, no paperwork, no waiting. Their AI-driven tech allows you to get approved and funded even quicker than before. So call Loan Pronto now. If you've got home improvement on your mind or you've got big bills to pay and you don't like the interest rates that are eating up your monthly budget, call Loan Pronto at 615-499-5780 or visit loanpronto.com. Get your free quote with no hard credit pull. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators and Blackhawks tonight. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6 on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Although these two teams are two of the three worst teams in the NHL, it's always a good game when the Predators play the Blackhawks. Great rivalry. So Predators and Blackhawks tonight at 7 right here on 102.5, 106.3
And of
The
course,
Game.
it is the Golden Hall.
Of course.
So Shea Weber,
Yes.
Pekka Rinne, David Poyle, the first inductees. They had a great lunch. There's a ton of alumni in town, so it's been very nostalgic. We'll talk to Elliot Friedman.
We
Okay.
actually won't talk to Elliot Friedman today.
What?
Elliot
Yes.
Friedman had to move to tomorrow.
Dang, Willie,
What?
come on.
I did mention that at the
Yeah.
top of the show. You weren't here
I wasn't
yet.
in the
Exactly.
know.
Yes,
on
so-
it. Okay,
So-
So Elliot will join us
Yeah.
tomorrow.
but either way,
Yes.
there's a lot of fun history. By the way, I have challenged Elliot to look this up as we get nostalgic.
Mhm.
It was win 1,000 for the Predators on Tuesday, which, it's just a number or whatever, but it's kind
That
of.
ain't just the number, Willie. That's a lot of wins.
Well, there was a lot of research done on
Okay.
fastest to 1,000 and things
Uh-huh.
like that. I mean, it's been a very successful run, right? It's just where you mark. But Andrew Burnett, first goal in the first win
Mhm.
in franchise history. So first goal number 1, win number 1 as the player,
Mhm.
and win number 1,000 as a coach. That can't have been duplicated, right?
Oh,
I can't
man.
imagine.
The chances are like 1 in 100,000 that could have happened before. I've asked people, I asked Elliot, I said, put your people on that. See if you can see if anybody's ever done that before.
That's why he needed the extra day.
He needed
Maybe he
some-
needs another day
Yes.
for research.
Yes.
Now we're on to something.
We are
Okay.
planning on
Okay.
talking to Elliot
Okay.
tomorrow on the show. He had a scheduling conflict today, unfortunately. But we will talk some Predators in the 1 o'clock hour when we would normally talk to Elliot Freeman. All right. Here is the exercise that the two of you are going to do. I have a list of 6 veteran quarterbacks who could be available this offseason, whether they're free agents or could be available via trade, or they might get cut. They could be available. And here's how we're going to do this. In this first segment, we're going to talk about 3 of them. In the second segment, we're going to talk about the other 3.
Mhm.
And in the final segment of this hour, we are going to reveal our rankings. So as I list off these quarterbacks, and we can discuss each of them as I list them off, I want you to have your own ranking. Don't share it with anybody. Don't share it with each other.
Ah,
And at the end of the hour, we will reveal our personal rankings of these 6 quarterbacks. How does that sound?
sounds
good.
okay.
All right. So quarterback number 1 on this list of 6 veteran quarterbacks who could be available if the Titans decided to go veteran quarterback instead of drafting a quarterback.
Okay.
Now, quarterback number 1, the belle of the ball, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold will be 28 when next season starts. He quarterbacked the Vikings to a 14-2 start. And then, like my son, when he has too much to drink before bed, peed his pants in the final 2
He
games.
did more than pee his pants,
In the
buddy.
final 2 games of the season, the 2 most important games, the Vikings losing to Detroit in Week 18, which forced them to go on the road in the wild card round instead of getting a bye, and then they lose to the Rams in the playoffs. He is going to be the number 1 quarterback available in free agency.
Mhm.
A couple of questions about Sam Darnold. Number 1, of course, how much is he going to cost? 2, how much did his performance over the past 2 games change how much he could cost in free agency? Our team's going to be looking at the overall body of work instead of these just past 2 games. Big games, but 2 games out of a larger sample. And number 3, is Sam Darnold capable of having this type of season when he's not coached by Kevin O'Connell and doesn't have the likes of Justin Jefferson to throw to? So quarterback 1 on this list, Sam Darnold. And you gentlemen can discuss the pros and cons of Sam Darnold amongst yourselves.
Okay.
What do you think? Sam Darnold.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think for me, Sam Darnold, he's not a bridge quarterback. I don't think he wants to be a bridge quarterback. I think he wants to be a quarterback that's under at least a 4 to 5 year deal. And that's when you talk about 4 or 5 years, that's not a bridge quarterback. To me, a bridge quarterback is 1, maybe 2. So I think that's going to be the first obstacle for the Tennessee Titans, if indeed that's the road they want to travel. Because if they're looking to draft a quarterback, potentially, whether it be with the first pick or move down in the draft and still be able to get that quarterback, you can't then sign a quarterback to a multi-million-dollar deal that is going to be worth, in between 30, let's just say 35 and $47 million. And it's going to be at least, I think, 3 to 5 years. So if you want to commit to him 3 to 5 years, then you might as well just bypass the quarterback, stack your team, and he be your franchise quarterback, i.e. Ryan Tannehill. If that's not the route you're going, then don't even call his agent, because I guarantee you he's going to be wanting a long-term deal.
And Tannehill, it's important to note, I think they got him for, a very,
And
very,
they reworked
very
his
low
deal.
price. In the first year,
Mhm.
they didn't really pay him anything, and then they started ratcheting up as they realized that he was a good fit, and they were winning. So it is different. So for that reason, I'm entirely with you, D-Mace. I am out on Sam Darnold, because he is too much of an investment, and he cannot be a guy that you're just kind of soft pedaling in as a bridge. Let's see how it works. It's I got to throw a lot at him. I've got to commit to him. And I don't know that he's the guy.
Yeah.
It's for all these variables that you threw out there, Adam. So I'm out on that. It's gonna cost too much.
I look at his situation sort of like Jimmy Garoppolo in this sense. Like, okay, if we commit to him long term, that's not a good thing. We want to commit to him a year or two, but he's not going to go for a year or two contract. His play states that, he should get a 5-year deal, but we don't trust that he can get us to where we want to go consistently. That was Jimmy Garoppolo's whole deal. It was like, we know you can play, but you, for whatever reason, you have these games where you do more damage than you do good. So on one hand, I can see paying you $40, $50 million. But on the other hand, it's like, I can't pay you $40 or $50 million because I may get a good year out of you, and then the rest of the years I have you for the contract, it's going to be so up and down that I might as well not even have you.
Like you said, Adam, he's going to be the number one guy.
Yeah.
And he's in a very good bargaining position, so you will have to overpay to get him in. That's the reason that I say no.
All right, that was quarterback number 1. Let's go to quarterback number 2, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson will be 36 when the season starts. He turns 37 in November. He started the last 11 regular season games for the Steelers. They went 6-5 in those 11 games, and he lost to the Ravens in the playoffs. Over his first 7 starts, the Steelers went 6-1. He threw 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Over his first 7 starts, they went 6-1. They finished the season losing their final 4 regular season games, and of course, they lost in the playoffs. And during that 4-game losing streak to end the season, plus the playoff loss, the Steelers averaged just 14.2 points per game. So quarterback number 2, he is a free agent, Russell Wilson.
No, for this reason. What have we talked about with the Titans quarterback this year? Not so much Mason Rudolph, but Will Levis. Holds on the ball too long. Takes sacks he doesn't need to take. This offense is built on what? Getting rid of the ball in rhythm, quickly in rhythm, scanning the field, getting back to your third or fourth guy if you have the ability to do that. It doesn't call for you to hold on to the football and try to get the ball down the field. That's not what this offense is built on. It's built on timing, precision, spacing, placement. Russell Wilson doesn't get the ball out of his hands quick enough. He holds on to the ball entirely too long. He doesn't see the field the way he needs to see the field. I don't know if it's because of the injuries he's piled up, the age or whatnot. He's just not seeing the field the way I believe he saw it when he was in Seattle. So for that point and that point alone, I'm not bringing him here because we're going to see the same things that we saw from Will Levis. Maybe not all the mistakes, but not having the offense on schedule, not having a timing offense, a fluid offense. Watch the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they're not running the football, a lot of times things are not out of his hands in proper timing. it's like he's moving around. He can't see anything, and all of a sudden he gets to a guy last minute. He doesn't throw on time enough for me.
I would argue that the Steelers got a really good bridge year out of Russell Wilson. He was a good bang for your buck, even though he's not what he was 5 years ago. They got a decent return on investment there.
Yeah.
And so that being said, I'm with you, Derek. It's not a fit. It's not the answer. But if he's sitting there and nobody wants him, and I can get him for what the Steelers got him for, that's better to me than throwing a boatload of money at Sam Darnold and expecting Sam Darnold to carry you to great heights. If you're just trying to give me a placeholder for a year while we try to figure out who the answer is down the road, which is never an easy answer, then I'm more middle on Wilson. But it's not what I'm looking for, and I don't think it's a fit with Callahan's offense.
Okay. So we've got Darnold and we've got Wilson. So rank them. And here is the third quarterback, the final quarterback of this first part. Let's stay in the Steel City. Justin Fields. Justin Fields will be 26 when the season starts. So one of the youngest quarterbacks available on the free agent market. He started the first 6 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They went 4-2 in those games. He threw 5 touchdowns and 1 interception in those 6 games, but he also rushed for 5 touchdowns. So 10 total touchdowns, 5 thrown, 5 rush, 1 interception. Justin Fields. I submit Justin Fields onto this.
Let me start on this one. How old is Justin Fields, you say?
He's 26.
How old is Will Levis?
25.
Pretty close.
Yes.
Right? So you still hear, I heard Rand Carthon say it the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Callahan even sort of has this, Will Levis is now on that large pile of quarterbacks who have failed in the first run as the starter.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that pile historically never really becomes a starter again. They go into, as Tim Hasselbeck likes to say, Trubisky land, right? You become a backup. Yeah. You're around. You're good enough to be in the league, but you're probably not a starter, right? Fields is getting into that territory, right? But at the same time, could Fields be the next Darnold, late blooming guy that fails on the first run and then does hit it? To me, the key question here, D-Mace, is what's the price? What is the market? Will somebody see Fields and say, a lot of tools, a lot of talent, and hey, if all else fails, the guy's going to run for 1,000 yards. If he's your quarterback for 17 games, he will run for about 1,000 yards. He did it a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. That may not be winning football, but if the light goes on for him as a passer and he makes modest improvement, could you catch him on the right wave and he becomes good? I'm much more optimistic on him, but I'm not going Darnold, right, where we know I got to get him at a budget. But I'm optimistic on him. He's a guy that I would consider.
Yeah.
More than the other two for sure.
Again, I don't know if he would be a right fit or not. I would say that Russell Wilson is he's more of not a right fit for the Tennessee Titans than I think Justin Fields is. I think Justin Fields, he showed, each year as a passer, he got better. Now, he had a lot of distractions in Chicago. I mean, from changing head coach, offensive coordinators, I don't think he ever felt comfortable in the situation he was in Chicago. And you sort of see Caleb Williams going through those same things. Now, Caleb Williams is, I think, a better passing prospect than Justin Fields is. But some of the same stuff Justin Fields went through, he's going through as well because of the organization. Now, but each year he got better. He went from 7 touchdowns, 17. Then obviously he dipped down to 16, but he was more so in his mode of he only played 15 games, and then they were sort of working with the coordinators and all this other stuff. But he showed that as a passer, he got better. It wasn't like a huge jump, but you could see the incremental gains that he had each and every season. He would be a better fit, I think, for a Callahan offense than a Russell Wilson is for me, because I think he's young enough and he doesn't know enough that Brian Callahan can really pour into him. and get him to run the offense the way Callahan wants to run it. Russell Wilson is more so of us, he's an old dog. He's going to do what he's going to do. Yeah, he may change a few things, but the way he sees the offense, no matter how many times you tell him, it's going to be different. Whereas Justin Fields, you get him early enough, not to say he's going to be your franchise quarterback or anything, but like he could be that bridge quarterback. And then if it works out that one year, you may want to sign him back. But I wouldn't completely say no to a Justin Fields because I think he fits the offense better than Russell Wilson would.
I'm curious what the market will be for Fields at this stage of his career. Will somebody offer him more than 1 year, right? Because the Steelers got him dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And the Fields-Wilson experiment was not a failure at all. That was not a bad little science project, right? Because they overachieved in a lot of people's minds.
Yes, Justin Fields was 4-2 as the starter in Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson 6-5 during the regular season. 615-737.
By the way, are the Steelers going to bring back one of those guys? What's their plan, do you think?
That's a good question.
If it's not one of them, who is? They got to get one of these guys.
I'm sure they're having the same conversations there that we're having here. 615-737-1025. So the first three quarterbacks on my list: Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. All of you listening, put together your rankings. I will unveil the next three quarterbacks. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063. The Game.
Oh, I know this song.
Mhm.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Part 2 of our veteran quarterback exercise.
Can we just say that when this album came out, I don't think I knew 5 friends that did not have this tape.
And every 3
Yeah.
friends wanted to be the Beastie Boys.
That's right.
It was a tape back then?
It was a
it was a
tape
tape
back in the
back
day.
then,
Yeah.
yes.
It was just before the CDs
Uh-huh.
started, becoming more routine. CDs were like brand new. Like, oh man, I don't know if CD. Do you have a
Tapes,
CD
but
player like in your house? Like,
Everybody
I-
didn't have CD
eventually I got one.
Yeah.
Eventually, I was not on the first thing. So it
Wave.
was still tapes for a while.
I was right in the middle of prime burning CDs. Like
Burning CDs.
burning
Yeah, that was a whole
CDs.
nother phase. Yeah.
was a big thing, and I hope nobody from the what's it called, the RIAA, the Recording Industry Association of America, whatever it is, that used to send letters to people who would download things illegally on LimeWire and Napster. I was like, that was in my prime of like
Okay.
stealing music and burning CDs.
Did you burn License to Ill? Years later. Was
I don't
that
think
in your thing?
I don't think I did. But I appreciate the Beastie Boys.
Yeah,
I
Beastie Boys are
absolutely do. All
solid.
right. So back to this exercise. We've done the first 3 quarterbacks.
Yes.
Darnold, Wilson, and Fields. Willie and Derek are doing their own personal rankings. They're not sharing them with us until the next segment, when we will unveil our rankings and see how similar or different our lists are. So this is quarterback number 4, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins will be 37 when the season starts.
I'm giving my Keith Hernandez. Something happens to him. He always does that in the Mets broadcast.
Kirk Cousins will
Kirk
be
Cousins?
37 when the season starts. He signed a mega deal with the Falcons last year, benched after 14 starts. Over his final 5 starts with the Falcons before being replaced by Michael Penix, 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions.
Woo.
According to ESPN, Cousins has a no-trade clause. If Atlanta traded him, the team would be on the hook for the $37.5 million of remaining proration, while his fully guaranteed $27.5 million base salary would transfer to his new team.
Wait, say that part again. That's a key.
Mhm.
It says if Atlanta traded him, the team would be on the hook for the $37.5 million of remaining proration, while his fully guaranteed $27.5 million base salary would transfer to his new team. There's also a likelihood that Atlanta would have to eat some of that in a deal. So keep that in mind as well. Kirk Cousins failed first year with the Atlanta Falcons.
And did you go over if they cut him, or is this only if you traded for him?
This is only if they traded for him.
If they cut him,
Okay.
they on the hook for all of it. It's
I would
a
have
dead
to look
cap.
up the
I'd have to think
particulars.
It's a
Yeah,
massive dead
it's a
cap.
dead-
Massive if
dead
they
cap,
did, I'm
yes.
sure.
Yeah.
So they would prefer to trade him, but
Yeah,
they are not in a good bargaining position.
And
based
that
on
is
what you
part
just
of your calculus. If you
Yes.
think that Kirk Cousins could be a good bridge quarterback, you probably can get him fairly cheaply.
what I'm seeing now, and I'm always be a huge fan of Kirk Cousins. I'm biased. I'm gonna let everybody know that he's green and white through and through, so I'm biased with Kirk Cousins. But you did see the decline this season. Now, was this a permanent decline, or was it just, because of the Achilles last year, it finally caught up with him again? He began to get tired, and maybe next season it'll be much better for him. Those are the things that you got to think about. Did we see are we now starting to see a complete nosedive from Kirk Cousins? And if so, I'm damn sure not taking on that contract, and I'm not bringing him here for that reason. He's 37 years old. That massive contract that you would have to take hold of, and he's not even a 1-year fix. That's like a half a year based on the way he played in Atlanta.
What
That's
you're
like a
hoping,
8-game fix.
what you would be hoping for, I think, Willie, is that Cousins could be this season's version of Russell Wilson. The Falcons owe him a lot of money, and you could theoretically get him for veteran minimum.
Could you? You're saying
So
if they cut him?
So according to ESPN, it said that let's see what it says here. It says the Denver Broncos were in a similar situation last offseason when Russell Wilson ultimately was released before his $37 million salary for the 2025 season became fully guaranteed. Wilson's guarantee was due on March 17th, 2024, exactly 1 year before Cousins' roster bonus with the Falcons is due. Wilson signed a 1-year deal with the Steelers worth the veteran's minimum at $1.2 million, similar to the type of contract offers Cousins would field from other teams if he chooses to play in 2025. Any salary Cousins earns in 2025 would be offset by the $27.5 million owed to him by the Falcons,
Right.
making him a potential
So the
bargain
Falcons are
option for
not
next
cutting
season.
him. They're not going to cut him.
I think
But they may not have a choice.
Yeah.
Though. Like are they willing to keep him? Is the real question, because the Broncos, I think, were like, well, we'll just trade him, and nobody wanted to trade for him under
But
the
I think
circumstances, and so they're like, look, we can't have him here. We've got to cut him. I think that's what happened, and the Steelers jumped in. To me, that would be the scenario that I would then consider Cousins an option. I would not consider trading for him for what you said, Adam. You're automatically going to have 37-something million. I'm not going there with him. We had this conversation, though. There was a Thursday night game early in the season, and I'm trying to remember who they were playing. I think it was the Bucs, and it was the Bucs. And Kirk Cousins had a great game, led him in there. They won the game. It was really dramatic. It went back and forth to the end. He threw for like 500 yards or something like that. That was just this past season. So he did show that he was still capable
started off
at
quite
the time,
well.
right? It's the recency bias.
Yes.
But like you were saying, Derek, are you willing to put that aside and say, could he rebound at his age? It's not like he has to be running all over the place to be effective. So at 37, I could still envision him, if you protected him and you had a good offense around him, that he could execute. But I go back to I'm not trading you anything for him. If you put him on the street, then I would throw him into the bin of, I would take him for the right price.
Does he
in the
fit?
Russell Wilson Steelers kind of category?
So this article from ESPN from December 21st from Adam Schefter, it says that that Cousins' divorce from the Falcons is expected to be finalized before his $10 million roster bonus is due March 17th, with executives across the NFL fully expecting Atlanta to release him.
Well,
So I don't think it is.
Atlanta-
It's more likely that he's available as a free agent, not as
Yes.
a.
But
a
even
trade.
as a free agent, I'm looking at it a little bit different. And from this standpoint, not to say that I wouldn't, entertain bringing Cousins here. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're trying to compare what Russell Wilson did the last year with Denver and what Kirk Cousins did the last year with Atlanta, Russell Wilson didn't get benched. They wanted to bench him, They wanted to take him. But he had a good season. Like, he played consistent the whole season. It wasn't like he started off like game busters and then took a nosedive. Yeah. He played consistent throughout the whole season. Now, it wasn't enough for Sean Payton ultimately.
Yeah, and that was a big thing.
Exactly.
It didn't seem like Payton ever was on the same page.
Exactly. So it's not like Russell Wilson played bad football. He played good football, but it wasn't good enough for Sean Payton and what he wanted to do moving forward. You look at Kirk Cousins, he played bad football, and it took a nosedive. So, yeah, recency bias is, will GMs look at it and say, is that an indication of him now being on a true decline, or is that something else that was going on, and I need to look at the first whatever games he played and how well he played?
And he's unique because I think we would all agree he's got the mind of a really, really good NFL quarterback. The question is, and this is where you have to really get good info, physically, did he hit a wall that he can't come back from with age? Or was there something going on physically that will not be as much of an issue next year that you could roll the dice on? Once again, as the word that keeps coming up, and I think it's accurate, is bridge, right? He's a bridge. He's not the answer for the next however many years, probably, but could he give you a nice bounce back year for a minimal price? I'm putting him in my hopper.
All right. So that's quarterback number 4, Kirk Cousins. Quarterback number 5, Aaron Rodgers. He's 41. He'll be 42 in December. So he'll start the season at 41. He'll be 42 near the end of the season. He threw for 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions this past season after barely playing the season before, after injuring his Achilles. He has a long history with Chad Brinker because of their time with the Green Bay Packers organization. You also have to consider the extracurriculars, for lack of a better term. you're going to have to be watching a lot more of the Pat McAfee show every week if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback.
There he is right now on the
Oh,
TV.
there he is.
Right now. He's on there right
Speak of the devil, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback number 5 on this list.
now. I know how Mr. D-Mace
Yeah, you know
feels
how I
about this.
feel.
He's in on
I'm
this.
like, hey, listen, give me Aaron Rodgers and build your roster for the next year. Draft your quarterback, and I won't complain not one bit. I mean, listen.
What is it? What's your ballpark price
That's a
that
good
you're willing
question.
to kind of get in there? If you were like, all right, Aaron, jump on in here, come to Nashville for 1 year, and we'll pay you X. What's your strategy? Because as we talked about yesterday, I hope that in Aaron Rodgers' mind, it's not about the money at this point. It's about where would I like to play? Like he's been kind of floating out there. Look, I may not play.
Yeah.
Like where is his mind? But if he wants to play, I would think he wants to play for somebody that is competitive.
Yeah.
So you got to give them a little extra money to go get you the best players that you can get.
Yeah, I think it would be in between. It's sort of like the Sam Darnold to me, in a sense. Like I would give him in between 30, low 30s up to 40.
See, I think it's a great question.
Because
Can you win if you're paying your quarterback that much? I mean,
but that's
how
like
much
the
you
going
budget for that.
that's the going rate. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the going rate for a starting quarterback, especially a starting quarterback that has proven that he can play. That's getting him for a bargain, honestly. And again, he doesn't come in because everybody's saying, well, no, if you bring Rodgers, you got to bring everything. He wants his guy. No, that was 2 years ago. He's not in the place of power that he was in 2 years ago, so you don't have to do that. So in between 35 and 40, I would pay him for a year.
I would love to try to get that number to 20.
I'm not
in the 20s.
No, I don't think you. That's totally. I think that would be disrespectful to Aaron Rodgers and his camp.
Yeah,
to
it's
say
got to be more his
20
idea to
million.
get it down in there. But I would try to float that philosophy, the Brady philosophy. Hey, look, you're 41, man. If you want to win, I need some extra resources
I
to build the
understand.
roster,
Yeah.
especially if we're going to think about maybe 2 years here. But is there another? Is there a sixth option?
All right, quickly,
Mhm.
the final option, Derek Carr. Derek Carr will be 34 years old when the season starts. The Saints cap situation, it's a mess. If he were to come available, he worked with Brian Callahan with the then Oakland Raiders. Brian Callahan was the quarterback's coach in, I believe it was 2018.
Mhm.
Derek Carr had his first career 4,000-yard season with Brian Callahan as his quarterback's coach. He also has some overlap with Nick Holtz, the Titans offensive coordinator, who also worked in the Raiders organization when Carr was there. According to ESPN, the Saints will owe him $40 million if he is on the roster on the 5th day of the league year, $30 million guaranteed base salary, and a $10 million roster bonus. Quickly, Derek Carr.
At age again?
He will be 34 when the season starts.
What spot does New Orleans pick in the draft?
What spot does New Orleans
I
pick
think
in the
they-
draft?
what are
Let's see.
7th?
No, I don't think they're 7th.
A little higher, 9th, 10th?
The Saints are picking 9th.
9th. Okay. All right. There could be a possibility. I don't know how his contract is structured, and you know more about the Saints.
He has
than I
he
would.
has said he is not going to take a pay cut.
So if he doesn't take a
Well,
pay
good
cut,
luck with
they're
that.
getting
Can he really dictate
exactly? They're getting a new head coach, mind you. They got to get a new head coach. I think that say if they go out and get Aaron Glenn, I say he keep Derek Carr for another year. Why? Because they're not in a position to possibly, and they may not have one of these quarterbacks ranked high, and they're not in a position to possibly get one at this particular moment. So to me, if I'm the new head coach, I'm like, man, let's keep him for another year. Let's build around him and go that route. So he may not even be on the market.
I'm looking at the Saints fan here, and I'm trying to read the
It's
read-
Spencer Rattler time in New Orleans, everybody.
Okay,
Jay
so,
Kaner time.
so I think I would go along the lines of the Cousins
Mhm.
thing. Sit back and wait. I'm not trading for him. If he's cut and he's on the street, then I do think I'm looking for if I could get him at the right price. The price is everything to me. I'm considering him if he's cut.
615-737-1025. We already have some of your rankings rolling in on the text line. Coming up next, Willie and Derek They'll take this time. It's like the final Jeopardy. Do, 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 do. That's what's going to happen during the break. We will unveil our rankings coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank, banking made easy on purpose. I'm pulling up some new material for them, and my computer is moving slow on it, but I think I've got it now. Let's talk F&M Bank. These are some of the tools that I talk about a lot. Banking made easy on purpose. We have so much fun with the take it to the bank segment. As much frustration as I show with the competition, partially because I'm in third place, but that's not all of it, I guess. But we have a great time Fridays to end the week, and F&M Bank is along with us for 2025, which is great. And they're doing great things for their clients. Here's one example. A little change can go a long way, especially when you're trying to save money. So if you haven't checked out F&M Bank's Smart Swipe Roundup feature, it's time to do that. If you want to make a New Year's resolution and say, you know what, I'm going to find ways to save money this year. F&M's Debit Card Roundup Smart Swipe feature is a great tool. It deposits change into your savings account every time you make a debit card purchase. So you buy a cup of coffee, it's $5.10. Smart Swipe would round it up to $6, and you save that extra 90 cents. So every time you use that card, that money starts going into your savings account. It's just a small, simple tool to save some money. Saving money can be hard, but F&M Bank can make it easier. So stop by one of their branches. They've got 20 in our listening area. Just go to myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. Tell them you heard this from us here on 1025 The Game, because all of us know a little change can make all the difference. It's F&M Bank, member FDIC.
D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 the game. Pencils down, gentlemen.
Dang it.
It's time.
I see you still writing, D-Mace.
Put that pencil down, Derek.
Oh,
Speaking of pop
man.
quizzes or just taking tests in school in general, and the teacher would say, all right, pencils down. Did you ever try to sneak in that last
Oh,
bubble? You're
absolutely.
just trying to fill in that last bubble?
Absolutely, I did. Especially if I was like behind like a few people
Yes.
in rows, I'm still like,
All right. So this is the time we're going to unveil our rankings. So this was the exercise. I shared 6 veteran quarterbacks who could be available this offseason for the Titans in case the Titans decide to go down the veteran quarterback road as opposed to the number 1 overall pick. All right. So these were the quarterbacks: Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and Derek Carr. Derek, you go first, and I will write down your responses.
okay.
1 through 6. 1 being the one you want the most,
Uh-huh.
6 the one you would want the least.
Well, it should be a question who I want the most, and that's Aaron Rodgers.
All right, Aaron Rodgers,
so
number
Aaron
1
is
for Derek.
Derek Carr is 2.
Okay,
3 for me is Justin Fields.
Okay.
We can discuss all of why we pick what later afterwards.
yes.
3 is Justin Fields. 4 is Kirk Cousins.
Okay,
5 is Russell Wilson,
Mhm.
and I disqualify Sam Darnold. No, seriously, I disqualify Sam Darnold.
okay. He's going to be 6
Yeah.
on the list.
Is
Yeah,
it because he's a pumpkin now?
Carr second.
Huh?
Carr was second.
Yep,
on yours?
Carr was
Okay.
second. Yep.
So Derek's rankings: Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, and Sam Darnold.
And I
Willie,
will explain why I did all
we
that.
will go
Yeah.
over those. Willie, you're up.
I had Fields number 1,
Interesting.
Rodgers number 2,
Okay.
Cousins 3,
All right.
Carr 4,
Mm-hmm.
Wilson 5,
Right.
Darnold 6.
Okay. David, did you play along by chance?
I play a little bit. I just only have like the top 3 that I would want.
David James has Lamar Jackson 1.
Lamar Jackson.
Joe Flacco, too.
Jackson. hey,
And
how'd you
Tyler
know?
Huntley 3. Tyler Huntley 3.
Elvis Gerback 4.
And then at the very bottom,
Kyle Bowler 5. Kyle
Exactly.
Bowler 5.
Trent Dilfer 6.
All
How'd
right.
y'all know?
All right. So Derek's list was Rodgers, Carr, Fields,
Yes.
Cousins, Wilson, Darnold.
Yep.
So both of you have Wilson and Darnold 5 and 6.
Yep.
All right. So your top 4s are quite different. Derek, you have Justin Fields at number 3. Willie, you have Justin Fields at number 1.
Yes.
Why do you have Justin Fields as number 1?
I think this everything revolves to me around, because I would put Wilson and Darnold in a not interested. The other 4 I have interest if the price is right. And to me that is the key to everything. And I think Fields might have a little better market value than I would hope, because I'm looking for the bargain. Because again, I'm looking for a flyer here.
Uh-huh.
I don't think any of these guys are the long-term answer necessarily, but Fields is the one guy that has a chance, in my mind, to have a late blooming, good next stage of his career. The next Sam Darnold that you get on the ground floor. I have seen players struggle for a long time, and all of a sudden it happens for them. It's rare.
Mhm.
They're much more likely to be Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
But Fields has got some really interesting tools.
And
So-
to your point about being the next Sam Darnold, potentially, he's younger than Sam Darnold by a couple of years. So
Yes.
if it does work, you might have more one way.
I'd have to check the birth dates, but he's within a year of being the same age as Will Levis. So he's played a lot. He's had big games in the NFL. That says something. So I would love to take a flyer on him, because you could hit the jackpot and all of a sudden you got something there. The other guys are just stopgap guys for a year or two while you figure out who the next guy you're going to draft is and how do I go that round. This is all, again, for those that maybe jumped on board this discussion late, this is not weighing the option of just drafting the guy with the
We
first
are only
pick this
looking
year.
at veteran quarterbacks.
Right.
If the
We're
Titans
only
were to
looking
go
at it
down
if they
that
go
road.
this option. So Fields is number 1 for that reason. That
So
you could have the late bloomer there.
Yeah.
So
And he's a
Field is
talented
3
talented
months
guy.
older than Will Levis.
3 months. And he's
been
had
in the league
way
4
more
years.
success than Levis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Way more success.
So let's go over Willie's list again. Fields, Rodgers, Cousins, Carr, Wilson, Darnold.
So if I'm going stopgap, then I might as well go all in on Rodgers and explore if I could get him, because that would be intriguing, right? Because we know he's not long term, but it buys you a little bit of time. It gets you some attention, and it'll be interesting, right?
So Derek,
And then Cousins would be the other one. Like, could he rebound? He's got the cerebral mind of a quarterback. If I feel like physically he could do it, I'd give him a shot. Again, I'm looking for the bargain price, the best price I could come up with for all these guys.
so Derek's list was Aaron Rodgers 1, Derek Carr 2, Justin Fields 3, Kirk Cousins 4, Russell Wilson 5, and I'm making him put Sam Darnold 6, although he is disqualifying Sam Darnold for this conversation. So let's look at your top 3, Derek. Rodgers, Carr, and Fields. What led you to put those 3 in that order?
Okay, quickly, I disqualified Sam Darnold because he wants a longer term contract. I think he's going to be looking for anywhere from 3 to 5 years with guarantee money in there. So I'm disqualifying him for that particular reason, and not necessarily his play. I go with Aaron Rodgers first because I just think under all that stuff they were going through, and people can blame some of it on Aaron Rodgers. It is what it is, but all of that, he was the consistent guy on the field. I mean, he was the one guy that was consistent on that football field. Did it work out every time the way they wanted it to? No. But when Aaron Rodgers on the field, he's proven he gives you opportunities to win games. We thought that their defense was going to be much better than what it was, the Jets, and it was nowhere near what it was in the previous year. They didn't get the production that they thought they were going to get from the guys outside of their number one, Garrett Wilson. And then you bring Devontae Adams in late. I think with the team like the Titans, he can come in, work with Callahan, and they can produce a winning season together. But like Willie said, what is the price that he come in at? Can you get him at a lower price than probably what he's truly worth? So I would make Aaron Rodgers my number one guy. He can be that bridge guy to whoever you choose to draft this year or next year. Derek Carr is number 2 for me. I think he's the guy. He's already worked with Brian Callahan. He understands the offense. He can get rid of the ball very quickly. He's a guy that you don't have to worry about. Is he picking up the offense quickly? He's a guy that's going to come in day one. When you sign him, he's ready to go. Why? Because he knows the offense.
That's intriguing.
He knows you.
I probably undersold him on that facet. I didn't consider that as much as I probably should have.
Yeah.
That's a good
so,
point.
and then he's at that sort of age where, okay, if it works this year, you can possibly keep him for the next following year as well. If whoever you draft doesn't progress the way you feel he should be at that point. So Derek Carr can be a 2, possibly 3-year deal. Justin Fields is number 3. I think like Derek Carr in a sense, he may not know the offense, but he's not totally corrupted. I understand him being in Chicago and what happened, but I think going to Pittsburgh was good for his career. He was able, I think, to sort of watch everything, look, observe, watch how good organizations run, how they teach you how to be a quarterback in certain places. He had a damn good offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. So I think you bring him here. Now you can sort of teach him the things that you want him to know within this offense. And then he gives you the ability that you haven't had, you had it a little bit with Will Levis, but you didn't have necessarily. He's a dual threat guy.
But Levis was never able to turn that into anything.
And Justin Fields can.
And Justin Fields, we know.
Exactly. Justin
not
Fields
just that he can, he will.
Exactly. So you get sort of this dual threat. If you get him to learn offense the way you want him to learn it, I think you can. Not only do you have a guy that can excel in your passing game, but he also can excel with running the football.
This is not, by the way, trombone beginners class here. They are cleaning the floor. That if you hear a strange tone, that was what's going on in the background.
So for Kirk Cousins, I mean, listen, if you get him, you understand who he is. Yeah, he's trying to get rid of the ball quickly, but if he doesn't, he's gonna be in the same boat as Will Levis because he can't move. Will Levis could move, but he just didn't deliver the ball. With Kirk Cousins, he is not moving out of that spot. So if you're gonna get Kirk Cousins, you better make sure you have a right tackle. Make sure.
615-737-1025. We will get to your calls. We will get to your texts. Coming up next, I want to get your rankings of those 6 quarterbacks, and I'll also share mine.
Please do.
We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. What's going on? It is Thursday. It's warm outside. And I know you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs for some time now. Cool Springs MD for some time now. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not the first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to come up short. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that's why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with their tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you at Bridgestone Arena. Trombone practice has moved down the hall.
Good.
Thankfully.
Hey,
That guy's got some work to do.
first chair all city, 7th grade, trombone, right here. So
Nice.
plenty of trombone practice in my lifetime.
You and I would have been sitting on the same row in the back. I always thought I played in the band through the 9th grade.
Yes.
And I thought that was a fun part of being in the bass section is you're kind of removed from everywhere. You're way in the back. You can kind of have your fun without
Yes.
people knowing. So you and I would have sat right together.
Well, the problem was being first chair. I was at the end of the row in the back, so I wasn't like there weren't very many people sitting in front of me. So the the director still
You
could
were
have eyes
exposed. Yeah.
on me. Yes, I was certainly exposed. So we just went through our quarterback rankings of 6 veteran options who could be available to the Titans if the Titans decided not to draft a quarterback. These were Derek's rankings: 1, Rodgers; 2, Carr; 3, Fields; 4, Cousins; 5, Wilson; 867th, Sam Darnold. Willie: 1, Fields; 2, Rodgers; 3, Cousins; 4, Carr; 5, Wilson; 6, Darnold. I want to hear from all of you. We have plenty of responses, but let's get to Tyree first on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tyree, thank you for waiting so patiently. Please go ahead. Tyree, are you there?
Anybody?
Tyree is not
Yes, I'm
there.
here. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
there you go.
sorry.
Hi,
I'm
Tyree.
here.
Please
I'm
go
here. I'm
ahead.
here. How you guys doing?
Good. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I want you to know I played this game under protest. It hurt my soul to rank this because I have my own personal reasons about this Band-Aid thing. But anyway, if I had to choose one would be Fields. 2 and 3 would be maybe Wilson and Carr. But I refuse to put Darnold, Cousins, and Rodgers on this list. For the simple fact that I know how these Titans work. If they had a glimmer of good year, they're going to say, you know what? Let's just sign them for 3 more years. Let's give them that contract. Again.
You may be
Tell me,
right.
is that not the most Titan thing that we would do? Honestly.
I hear you, Tyree.
Now,
Thanks.
let me ask you a quick question
Sure.
before I go. Would you guys say that we have to get this done before 2027? We have to get this QB thing fixed before 2027.
That would be the goal.
That would
I
be the
think
goal.
That's a great goal.
Thanks for the call,
Yeah.
Tyree.
Now, do we think that they will have any chance of playing in the new stadium in 26, or do we think, like a lot of people have speculated, they wanted 26, but in actuality, it'll be 27?
Everything
'Cause
I've heard.
that's an important question,
yeah,
right? Because
everything
I
I've heard was
remember the effect
27.
when you guys moved into that new stadium,
Mhm.
and it was the Titans for it was like magic. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, boom! It was so different from the
Yeah.
very beginning.
Well,
The new stadium can mean something.
What I've heard is 2027. Maybe 20. I do you see that stadium being done in a year?
It
Look at-
doesn't look like it to
exactly.
me. Yeah.
And 2026 is not too far.
Maybe the parking lot will
exactly.
be done by next year.
So I'm looking at 2027, and hopefully they have their quarterback situation straight now.
This was my list, by the way. 1, Derek Carr; 2, Aaron Rodgers; 3, Justin Fields; 4, Sam Darnold; 5, Russell Wilson; 6, Kirk Cousins. That's my list.
All right, make the case for Carr.
So I don't know if Derek Carr is going to be available. As I said, he told
And
ESPN.
For people that don't know, you watch the Saints closely.
Yes. Derek Carr, consider the quarterbacks that the Saints have had since Drew Brees retired. Not necessarily in this order. Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, Derek Carr, Taysom Hill has started games at quarterback for the New Orleans Saints.
Taysom Thrill.
Trevor Siemian has started games at quarterback for the New Orleans Saints in that time. Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener. Like, it's not a good list.
Jake Haener, who I've never heard of him.
It's bad. You don't need to know much about Jake Haener. Either way, the point is Derek Carr, I don't think he is, an upper echelon quarterback. I think he's a perfectly fine, average to maybe slightly above average quarterback. What I like about Carr here is the familiarity with Brian Callahan and some of the other members of the coaching staff as well, the offensive coaching staff. So if you're looking for the only downside is I'm not sure because he's going to be 34 when the season starts. I don't know what that contract would look like in terms of years. Rodgers it might be a year or two. Carr might be a little longer. I don't know. That was one thing that gave me pause about Carr versus Rodgers.
What's the commitment? I think that's a key question.
Right. So I had Carr 1, Rodgers 2, Fields 3, and I pretty much agree with Willie's point as why he had Justin Fields number 1 on the list. Sam Darnold 4, Russell Wilson 5, and Kirk Cousins 6. I mean, Kirk Cousins was a pure pocket passer before he tore his Achilles tendon, and that lack of mobility behind this offensive line, oh boy, I don't think it would go very well. So though that is my ranking, and we've heard from Willie and Derek, I want to hear from you. 615-737-1025. Matthew in Nashville says 1, Darnold, 2, Fields, 3, Rodgers, 4, Cousins, 5, Wilson, 6, Carr. Chris in Dixon says Fields is the only one that had potential to give you more than what you've seen out of him. He's the only one you could get 3+ years out of, which is, I think, Willie's point. What we saw out of Darnold in those last 2 games is the Darnold you'll get, plus he'll cost you over $35 million a year. That was Chris and Dixon. So he has his ranking is Fields, Carr, Wilson, Cousins, Darnold, Rodgers.
It seems like if because you're looking at Carr, and I think if you really take a long look at sort of the pros, I'm not sure if there's as many cons. Maybe, he's not the elite quarterback. That's one con for him. He's not that elite quarterback. But I do believe he plays winning football. I do believe you can win with Derek Carr underneath center, especially if you don't have that fear of not calling plays. I think the fear of not calling plays was evident this year with Will Levis. I think they got to a point where they just said, Brian Callahan, there's some plays I just can't call. 1, the quarterback, 2, the offensive line. I think if you bring a guy like Derek Carr in, who you've worked with previously, who has been in this offense before, I think the ability to trust him goes a lot further. And then we will be able to see ultimately and hopefully the true play caller that Brian Callahan potentially is. I don't think we saw him in his totality this season because of the limitations. I think if you bring someone on like Derek Carr, first and foremost, there's a trust factor there. That's what you got to have between an offensive coordinator and a starting quarterback, the trust factor. I trust that you will put us in the best position as a coordinator, and as a coordinator, I will trust that you as the quarterback would do the things necessary for us to win football games. I think Derek Carr will do that more times than not.
The trust factor is something that is hard to quantify, but I do wonder a lot because of, as I hear you say that, D-Mace, I do think that's probably an underrated thing. And I try to think back, what would that have been like for a first-year head coach who's calling the plays last year? As Brian Callahan is watching his quarterback struggle in Will Levis, how does that affect his play calling? And also the other huge hole that was bogging the offense down, the right tackle. He knows he can't protect certain plays. That has got to severely limit and challenge him as a play caller. So he's ballyhooed as, hey, he's bringing in, he's a guru, he's a quarterback guy, he can call plays, and then it looks like this. Well, man, what does that make Brian Callahan look like? But he's got 2 Achilles heels that are affecting, and the trust is a big part of it. That affects what you can actually even try to call.
And here's another sort of nugget for, say, either Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers that I don't think many people would even think about. In the offseason, when you have your quarterback, say you have a Will Levis that says, hey, fellas, come and throw with me. And y'all go to the field and y'all throwing. But he's still learning the offense, so to speak. So are you truly buying in, like, yo, I truly fully trust that Will Levis knows what he's talking about in regards to the offense? Am I trusting that he knows the ins and outs of this offense? I'm going to show up, but how much will we get out of that practice because the coach is not here and we expect Will to be the coach? So if there's some, some things that we mess up on, he can quickly identify it and tell us. When you have a Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers and they tell you to come, you coming and you knowing that this guy knows the offense. That, okay, whatever he says, more than likely that's what's going to happen in the game. So I'm listening to him a little bit different than what I'm listening to on Will Levis in a sense, because especially Derek Carr, because he knows the offense. He pretty much probably knows what Brian Callahan is thinking in regards to what we want to achieve, say, in our passing session by ourselves minus the quarterback. We don't need Brian Callahan out here telling us everything. Why? Because Derek Carr knows his offense in and out. Aaron Rodgers potentially knows his offense in and out. There's a respect factor there that we better be here and we better be on our game because these guys know the offense just as well as the offensive coordinator / head coach.
Here is a scouting report of Derek Carr from The Ringer. I think The Ringer does a really great job with their NFL coverage, and they have a weekly quarterback ranking. This is their scouting report of Derek Carr, which made me laugh. Carr is a talented quarterback. He's a good athlete with a good arm who can handle a big playbook. But it's like someone put that skill set into a regular civilian and then dropped them into an NFL pocket. That's a terrifying proposition for 99% of humans. Carr made it to the NFL and has enjoyed a successful career, so he's obviously in that 1% who can handle the rigors of playing the position. He just doesn't handle them well compared to other quarterbacks. Carr's knowledge of the game is keeping him from sinking to the bottom of these rankings. He's able to work around his pocket poise issue through quick decision-making and accurate pre-snap reads. As long as Carr remains a step ahead of the defense he produces, when he gets fooled by creative defensive play callers or pressure throws him into a panic, it gets ugly fast, which actually makes me want to reconsider my ranking, having watched Derek Carr over these past few years. But that was a scouting report on Derek Carr. But I do think this idea that Derek Carr and Brian Callahan Brian Callahan having someone having an ally as the starting quarterback.
Yeah. It's got you have to put that down. That's got to be worthy of consideration.
A lot of votes, by the way, for Justin Fields. Of those 6, Justin Fields is getting a lot of top billing. One texter says, Justin Fields, hands down, Fields is extremely underestimated because he played on a horrible Bears team. He played great in the games he started for the Steelers. He fits the mold for a modern-day dual-threat quarterback.
That's the same. And let's go back to Derek Carr quickly, because I think they're on to something with the Justin Fields. I think he's more intriguing than all of them because of the age, and if you really give him an opportunity and some stability, what does he look like? Well, he looked pretty good in Pittsburgh. Why? Stable franchise, really good offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith, so he looked a little bit different than what he did in Chicago, even though I don't think it was all his fault in Chicago. You decided to add all these receivers once he left, and you didn't have an offensive line when he was there. But I digress. When you're looking at Derek Carr, I see a guy that for all those reasons that they noted. I remember hearing those same things when the Vegas Raiders played the Titans. So if you put pressure on them, this and that, and he carved the Titans up. And the Las Vegas Raiders end up winning that game, or were they still the Oakland Raiders at the time? They may have been still the Oakland Raiders. Listen, yes, that may have been him in certain places. Yes, that may have been him at times in New Orleans, but we don't know what the situation was in New Orleans.
That roster has deteriorated fast.
So
it's not a great roster.
So if you put him here, you surround him, fix the right tackle position. I think you have a added advantage because he understands that I believe he would understand, and Brian Callahan would understand him. He would understand Brian Callahan, and most importantly, he knows the offense. So it's not like, oh, the quarterback got to get up to speed. He's still learning the offense after 2 or 3 weeks. No, he comes in already knowing the offense. So you're already ahead of the curve from the quarterback standpoint. I get the Justin Fields things. I think the Justin Fields the ceiling is higher in a sense. But I think if you want to hit the ground running, you do it with Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers.
Kenneth is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Kenneth, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. How you guys doing today?
Good, thank you.
Good. Now, hear me out. Now, I know this idea has kind of been blackballed, But what about this? The quarterbacks you have on the list are fine, but I'm gonna bring one more quarterback in and say,
Sure.
oh no, not that. How about if you brought back Malik Willis? Throw him the keys to the car. It wouldn't cost you that much. He's 3 years in development. He's a developed quarterback. He can get away from that rush. You wouldn't have to pay him that much. You draft your quarterback, and if it was me, I would take Cam Ward. I think he's the next Steve McNair. Malik Willis can get away from that rush. The offensive line wouldn't look so bad if you had a quarter black, excuse my French, back there at quarterback. And did you see what Malik Willis did when he came in here?
Oh, we saw it.
I believe we did. Oh, yes, we did.
Come on,
I think
Okay.
everybody saw.
All right. Okay. So let's take that, right? Let me throw the key question at you because
Okay.
I want you to answer this part of it because this is a part of it.
Okay.
You said it wouldn't cost you much because he is on his first contract, so I get that part. Now,
Right.
as we know, the trade was Malik Willis for a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
Right.
How are you going to get him back?
Exactly.
You're not going to give them the 7th round pick back, and they're not going to give you Malik Willis, not after what he did, right? So how do you get him back from the Packers? Because I think they like him.
Well, the Packers, I know they're satisfied with Derek Carr, but you think that they could get him for maybe a 5th round pick or something, or some kind of way, because I think they just gave up on him too fast. And I don't know what they've been looking at, but he's a much better quarterback than Levis in my eyesight. I know Levis has got the big arm. Malik Willis has got a big arm too. He can get away from the rush, and that will make the line look a little bit better.
Thanks for the call, Kenneth. Quickly, what do we make of Kenneth's idea?
Okay, let's picture the phone call. You call the Packers back. Hey, this is Chad Breaker. I used to work for you guys.
Ram made a mistake.
Okay.
Ram made a mistake.
Remember
You
that-
don't put it on Ram.
Remember last year? I want to ask you about Malik.
That was Rand, by the way. Had nothing to do with me. It was
Had
Rand.
nothing to do with me.
Can we have a do-over? We'll give you the 7th round pick back. You give us Malik back. How does that sound to you? What
They
do
were
you
like,
think's gonna happen?
nah, can you give us a 5th?
Dial tone is what you'll hear. Go ahead next.
No, I think, listen, bringing Malik Willis back, that's not an option, at least for me. And that's not an indictment on me not thinking he can play in this league. I think he can play in this league. He's shown he can play in this league. But I'm not trying to go down that road again. I think Green Bay may be satisfied with the progress he's making as a backup quarterback. He's not going to be their starter. Everybody knows that. But you always need a valuable or viable backup. And it seems like Malik Willis is turning into that guy. So if you go back to them and say, well, we want Malik Willis, but they're going to be like, well, you need to give us a 5th round pick. Because if you want him, that means, you're willing to overpay for him. But the Titans are not going back down that route. Again, to me, Malik Willis is a backup quarterback, people. I'm not saying he can't start a game or 2 here and there or 3. But from what I've seen, he can play in this league for a very long time. But at this point, he's a backup quarterback. And I could be wrong on that, but what I've seen thus far, even though he came in here and beat the Titans, he's still, to me, a good backup, not a starting quarterback.
615-737-1025. Thank you all for participating in this fun veteran quarterback exercise. Coming up next, we have heard from Ryan O'Reilly about the report that Elliot Freeman, who will not be joining us today, he'll be joining us tomorrow. But Ryan O'Reilly has responded to that report, thanks to our very own Nick Keiser. We'll share with you what he said. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Yeah, so I made a few calls on that front on this day, Gino, because Ryan O'Reilly is such a big name, and believe me when I say that he's at the forefront of a lot of wish lists for some cup contenders. I mean, we just talked about the New Jersey Devils. Now, Tom Fitzgerald, could not get into names. That's tampering. But what he did say in his interview with me is that the number one objective for the trade deadline for New Jersey is to go acquire a center. He's looking for a center upgrade. Well, we heard what Brad Treliving said earlier this week. He confirmed that the Leafs are looking for a center. And guess what? So are several contenders. They're looking for a center. They're all going to call Nashville on Ryan O'Reilly. Some of them have already started kicking tires. What I can tell you is that the Predators are not actively shopping Ryan O'Reilly. They're not trying to trade him. However, they are listening. They have to. Where they are in the standings, they're not making the playoffs. And I guess the way I would put it is this way. The Predators are absolutely fine if they keep Ryan O'Reilly and that he's part of the bounce back next year. Remember, the Predators, they're not looking to do a rebuild. They're looking to bounce back, kind of like New Jersey did, and get back in the playoff picture in a year. And Ryan O'Reilly could be part of that. He's got 2.5 years left on his contract. But, and there's always a but, Gino, if a team really steps up and makes Nashville think with a real offer, then it's perhaps something the Predators would look at. That's why it's not impossible that Ryan O'Reilly could get moved. And what I would say to that is, don't go to the Predators with a draft pick offer. Be serious about your offer.
That was Pierre LeBrun, TSN insider, discussing Ryan O'Reilly. Elliot Freeman of Sportsnet had the initial report about Ryan O'Reilly last Saturday during the Hockey Night in Canada, that the Predators are treating O'Reilly as if he has trade protection in his contract, which he does not. We haven't heard from Ryan O'Reilly about this until now, thanks to our own intrepid reporter, Nick Keyser. Nick Keyser asked Ryan O'Reilly about this after morning skate today. This is what Ryan O'Reilly had to say.
Yeah, I had a brief chat. And, yeah, I think it's just speculation from, people outside, talking to Barry. Yeah, I'm part of this team and we're going to, and yeah, I think it's going to be, unless something crazy happens, which we don't really expect to, but I think I'm a part of this group and I plan to be in the future. And he said that he wants me to be a part of it here. So I don't think I'm not worried. I feel like this is where I want to be and this is the group. And yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That was Ryan O'Reilly today after morning skate. Thanks to Nick Keyser for providing the audio. That's the first we've heard Ryan O'Reilly address this. But Willie, as Pierre LeBrun said in that clip, the Predators aren't shopping Ryan O'Reilly. Now, this is one of the things that we get into around trade deadline season. They're not actively shopping, but they're taking calls. They're listening. And that's what it sounds like the Predators would be doing. Barry Trotz isn't calling other teams, it seems, and saying, hey, are you interested in Ryan O'Reilly? He's letting the other teams come to him. And to go off of Elliott's report from last weekend, if the Predators are made an offer that perhaps they can't refuse, then I believe Barry Trotz is going to go to Ryan O'Reilly to discuss it with him, which he is not obligated to do contractually. But with the respect that Barry Trotz has for Ryan O'Reilly, that's what he intends to do.
Yeah, I that was the standard answer from Ryan O'Reilly that most players give when they're asked a question like that. What I thought would have been interesting was, because you could tell he was kind of measuring his words as he was answering the question. So he did not get into the, hey, look, I appreciate where I'm at. My family loves it here. I really don't want to go anywhere. But I understand how the game works. I appreciate how they've said they want to treat this well. He didn't really get into that. He gave it a pretty standard answer. The thing that I think was the most noteworthy out of the LeBrun soundbite there was, and I've heard Barry Trotz talk about this with the whole UC Saros thing when it was going out there. Don't call me and make me an offer about it. Hey, I'll give you our first round pick or 2 first round picks. Where the Predators are right now, they have more picks right now than they know what to do with. If you listen to Barry Trotz with Jared on Tuesday, it wasn't earth-shattering stuff. But if you really listen to it, you could really tell where he is on this stuff. And O'Reilly was part of it. He goes, I've got to do what's best for the Predators. And at the same time, I love Ryan O'Reilly. He was saying he is a guy that I would love to have here. I brought him here for a reason, to win. I didn't bring him here to then wheel him off for a first-round pick. So it's got to be something that, as he said, knocks his socks off. So that lines up. So don't waste your time if you're just going to call and say, let me see if I can pick off Ryan O'Reilly. They're struggling, et cetera. So I think it makes sense. I think everybody's on the same page here, that if somebody really jumps in with an offer that you can't refuse, then you have to consider that. But by and large, I think they're sticking with Ryan O'Reilly for the plan, which is to bounce back next year and win.
Listen, I don't think at this moment they can afford to be giving away centers. He's a
Absolutely. The center part of it is huge.
Yeah. He's a part of their first power play. He's had four goals, I think, in the last 5 games. Hat trick a few games ago. Listening to him and just knowing Barry and how honest and upfront he has been with players, and players even said that. And he's been up at front and honest on our station and talking with Jared each and every week. I think that he went in to Riley because he understands this time of year. A lot of things are going to be coming up, and a lot of guys are going to be rumored to be moved or whatnot, especially the Nashville Predators, because they're not in a position really to make the playoffs. So I'm sure he got with Riley and say, listen, don't listen to what's going on. I'm telling you, unless they offer us something that is we can't refuse, you're here. We want you a part of our organization. But I'm not going to lie to you and say we're not trading you at all. You know, and because you can understand, you can sort of hear how O'Reilly was talking. And like you said, he was measured. He didn't want to say anything outside of what he and Barry and his representative had probably already talked about. So he's very measured in the fact of, listen, I understand this is a business. Barry has been upfront with me, and I am just concentrating on playing hockey. That's what I'm concentrating on. He said I'm going to be here unless something crazy happens, and that something crazy is you offer me something I just can't refuse.
Yeah. And what he said is, what Elliott's report seemed to insinuate was, look, if this is what we have on the table, are you interested? Is this appealing to you? Because let's take 2 different players, right? Because I think this is something that Barry Trotz considers. When he does the classy thing and thinks about the player.
Can he, before you say that, can he consider the age too? Because he turns 34.
He turns
34 next month.
February,
next month. He'll be 34 at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
34. With 2 years left on his deal.
Correct.
So it's his age 35 and 36 seasons that you would be trading for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And look, to me, I have no doubt that Ryan O'Reilly is the guy that's going to keep himself in shape and he will not be your normal 35, 36-year-old. Exactly. I think I can count on that. But let's take 2 guys. Nino Niederreiter, a couple years ago. Nino Niederreiter, kind of a guy, and I don't want to label him or anything, but he's a little bit more of a beat to your own drummer. He's a little younger. Not I don't believe he's married with kids. I know he doesn't have. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have kids. So it's a little easier to go to a Niederreiter and say, hey, we're going to trade you to so-and-so. Nino Niederreiter has moved around to different teams. I think that's a little easier to do that. Ryan O'Reilly, I think, was sold on this is a great place to raise your young kids. I think he's got 3, right?
I think so.
They're just getting to an age where they are aware of their surroundings a little bit more. I think they like it here. They like the atmosphere they're in. So it's a little tougher to go to a guy and say, I'm going to trade you. I'm going to be, as you called it, Adam, sometimes you have to be ruthless. I did see some times where I know David Poile probably, look, what's going to happen tonight, right? They've been through it. They've gone through the therapy and everything, but it was somewhat ruthless to trade Shea Weber, right? That was a tough decision to make. He thought it was the best. You live with the consequences. So sometimes you have to do that. But I think it's harder when you're selling players like Ryan O'Reilly. Come to Nashville. This is the great place to raise your family. this is where we're going to win, and then turn around and say you're
Yeah.
traded to X.
That's tough.
That's tough.
Yeah.
I still am having a difficult time figuring out what the return on that type of trade would be.
Because he's a center,
Be-
and it's very hard to find centers, right?
That is part of it. And it's just the fact that he is an older player. And I agree with you, Willie. Ryan O'Reilly is soon to be 34 years old, but he's in fabulous shape. There's no concerns about his conditioning or how he, his durability. There's no issues with that. But he'll be 34 when the trade deadline rolls around. By the way, the NHL trade deadline is March 7th. So the NHL trade deadline was in about a month and a half away, but he still has 2 years left on this contract. I mean, $4.5 million is not a significant cap hit, especially as the cap continues to rise. But I just can't think of a recent trade where I can point to and say, if the Predators were to trade Ryan O'Reilly, this is what they should get in return. I'm having a really hard time figuring it out.
Let me bounce it off you. Last year, the centers that got traded, there was a number of them. Elias Lindholm, Sean Monahan. I'm trying to think of one or two others. I felt like there were some centers that moved. I thought all of those guys got pretty big returns, and they were all rentals, basically.
Yes.
Right? And Ryan O'Reilly clearly is not a rental. He's got 2 years left. But at the same time, he's bringing a lot to the table, as we know. Like, he checks so many boxes for a team that's trying to win that I guess that's not a direct comparison, Adam, but I'm just going by what it takes to trade for a center. The market's usually pretty good, especially if there's not a lot of centers on the market. And unless Nashville goes on a miraculous run, as we've said, we always give that caveat, then as Elliot's pointed out, there's not a lot of sellers right now. There's a lot of teams that are still like let's say Columbus, who was a big seller before. They're in it. Montreal, they got a chance to get in there. Ottawa, there's not a lot of teams in the East that are out of it. So if you're one of the few sellers, then that even gives you a better bargaining position.
Well, let me ask you this. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
What do you do in the sense of, or any event that, okay, yeah, somebody is going to offer you what you want even more? Well,
which would be a player, right? Like, I think
so you would have to get a player back.
I don't want to draft
if you don't get a player back, how do I replace that position?
Right. And is a contender going to give you a player that they need to win? Right.
Yeah.
That's always that's what nobody did for Saros, really. And that's why Barry Trotz was like, well, then fine. I'm totally fine keeping an elite goaltender. And I think he will, at the end of the day, be totally fine keeping Ryan O'Reilly, because there's more reasons to keep O'Reilly than there are to trade O'Reilly.
Quickly, I would love your opinion on this, Willie. Who do you think would get more in a trade? Ryan O'Reilly, who has 2 years left on his contract, or a former Predators player who could also be on the move, Mikael Granlund, who is an unrestricted, who would be a rental for a team. He's in San Jose right now. I mean, Granlund is more of the traditional trade deadline move. He's a rental. He's a veteran. He's playing for a bad team. I wonder what the value would be for that. I don't know. I'm just curious what you think.
It depends on whether I'm viewing Ryan O'Reilly as a guy that can be part of my next 3 teams, or this year, next year, and the year after. If I see him, then that I think I might be willing to pay more for O'Reilly. If I see Granlund as I'm only getting him for this playoff run. It's all or nothing.
Right.
Now, this is an interesting thing about Granlund. Last I checked, he was playing pretty well. There's San Jose. There's 2 meetings between the Predators and the Sharks coming up, which have a lot of intrigue because of a guy that we've talked about a lot before, Mr. Askarov. That's going to be interesting drama. But
Tuesday,
I had one person tell me this, that I think there's some merit. If you're the Sharks and you've got all these young guys, and Askarov is one, they had the first pick in the draft. They got Macklin Celebrini, who looks really good, but he's so young. He said there's just as much an argument for the person as he said, for me, I'm more thinking about keeping Granlund than trading him for a pick or two.
Who leads the Sharks, by the way, with 37 points in 44 games.
Right. Not earth-shattering stuff, but somewhere around here. And the team that you're going to watch tonight play the Predators are going through this now too. You've got to try to surround young elite talent with veterans, or else they are really going to struggle. So Granlund has been good for them. I don't think they should just give him away for a pick. I think they'd have to heavily consider that as well. But again, centers are hard to find, so that phone is going to ring. I think people are going to come with offers to the table.
Predators, Blackhawks tonight at 7 o'clock, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Predators will honor David Poile, Shea Weber, and Pecorine as the inaugural class of the Golden Hall. 615-737-1025 will wrap up the show next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, let's talk Lee Company. Oh, yeah. The Chicago Blackhawks are in town. It is always good drama and all of the Golden Hall festivities going on as well. It's going to be a fun night here in Smashville. We'll have the coverage for you starting at 6 o'clock, and it is brought to you by our friends at Lee Company, 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. That weather fluctuates, and look, we're not that far, a couple months from making sure that air conditioner is running right. These are the types of things that Lee Company wants you to stay ahead of. And if you build a relationship with them, they can really help you. They have the year-round home maintenance plan where they're going to give you those yearly checkups on your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical systems. You pay a small monthly fee. You get the phone call and the annual checkups, and you get discounts when repairs are needed. So stay ahead of the game. You'll feel good as a homeowner. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. In business since 1944, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators and Blackhawks tonight at 7. Stillman and Company coming up next. Of course, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Yesterday, I heard Big Joe Dubin railing against the SEC network, whichever entity made the decision to start the Vanderbilt basketball game yesterday at 5 o'clock.
I'm with Joe on that.
But
That
it
was
didn't
an
stop you from
absolute-
going to the game,
That
though,
was an
Willie.
absolute joke to do that. I think it absolutely
Well,
stinks.
Willie is not in that majority of, having to get your kids here and do this and do that.
Yes, Willie was
and then
able
go
to
the
attend the
game.
I
Vanderbilt
was
game
able to
yesterday.
attend the game, but it's the only game in the entire league that started at 5 o'clock local time.
No respect.
To me, that is a big disadvantage for the home team. I think it obviously affected the crowd. I think it's harder to be the home team and doing that. That was ridiculous to do that. But they did it. Vanderbilt won, fortunately.
Last
Well, they had
second
a game.
layup to win the game.
All right.
Yes.
So I have a question for you guys.
Well,
All right. You guys are the coach.
Mhm.
Here's the scenario that happened last night. I think this is just a really good sports talk show thing. Vanderbilt hits a shot, an and one that breaks a tie with 0.6 seconds left. Oh my God.
Yeah, they were
McLaughlin
talking about it. Yeah.
has the putback. Great play. 0.6 left. South Carolina has 2 timeouts. So you're up by 2, 0.6 left. Do you instruct your player to miss the free throw? Now, as we know, what happened, McLaughlin hit the free throw.
Mhm.
South Carolina calls the timeout. They run a pretty good play where a guy
Gets a
who has
wide
hit
open shot.
a guy who had hit a couple of shots from 3 gets a pretty good look.
Oh, that was a damn good look.
Pretty good look. And that would have tied the game and put it to overtime. So some would say if you miss the free throw, even if they get the rebound and lose a couple of tenths of a second, that would have made that shot hard. I think there's an argument on both sides. So what would you do?
Man,
if you-
I think I'd have said miss it.
I would have. I
You
would
would've
have
said
said.
miss it?
I would have said miss it. But my question for you was, I would also need to know the situation of the game. For example, how many fouls did Vanderbilt have?
it would have been a 1-and-1.
Okay. Because I'm wondering, okay, you missed the free throw, you're fighting for the rebound, Vanderbilt gets called for a foul.
Then
going
it's a
for the
1-and-1
rebound.
to tie the game.
Yeah.
That would be a bad
But
thing.
but you're not even putting anyone. You're putting one guy on the line.
Probably, yeah.
It
You're
just to
telling him,
sorta
please do
contest it, yeah,
whatever
just
you
to
do,
contest
don't
it.
foul. But if
Yeah.
you can tip it,
Yeah.
that essentially runs the clock out.
Absolutely.
That
So
I
think
would
it's-
have instructed the player to miss it intentionally.
because
The
the
other
guy
thing
got
is-
a wide open 3-point shot and it hit.
Yeah. And
I'm
he
like,
was
oh my
fading
goodness,
away,
yeah.
and he had to catch it, turn, shoot. He
Uh-huh.
didn't. So that was a tough 3, but it was a pretty good look. So I thought about this: if you instruct him to miss, number one, if trying to miss is not super easy, and if you don't hit the rim,
But you got to hit the rim.
if you don't hit the rim, then that same shot could beat you and not tie you. So that's one thing. If you miss it, they get the rebound, immediately call a timeout. How many tenths of a second go off? Like in a word,
0.2 maybe.
well, yeah, and if you get under 0.4, then it has to be a tip. You can't catch and shoot. But if only 1/10 goes off, then that shot could be catch and shoot for a win. So I think it's easy to say just miss the free throw, but it's not clear cut, which is why I think it's a good debate. I think I've polled different people and different coaches. They've all got different answers, but analytics, I think in this day and age, you consider these things. Analytics tells you that you should miss the free throw.
So in that case, say if they do make the free throw, which Vanderbilt did,
Yeah.
do you put a man on the ball?
They did put a man on the ball.
I know, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
should
Yes.
they have put a man on
Yes,
the ball?
I think they should have.
Okay.
Now the other thing,
Because if you don't,
Yeah.
you got that extra guy that the guy that end up catching the ball, he doesn't get that free shot. He doesn't get that because that
you would
shot
have another
was wide
defender
open.
down there. Yeah,
Exactly.
he was open. I don't know who was guarding that guy, but
Yeah,
I was like,
me
he
either.
wasn't near. I was like, hey, maybe put a hand in the guy's face. Here's the other thing you could do if you make it. You could try to tell your guys
Mhm.
foul on the catch. As soon as he catches, foul.
Uh-huh.
Because then it's 1-and-1. You're up by 3 with a fraction of a second
Yeah.
left. They didn't do that. So these are all things that a coach has to think about, and you have to practice these things
Mhm.
and go through it. I just thought it was a really interesting discussion.
So Vanderbilt improves to 14-3 on the season, 2-2 in SEC play. Can we just talk about for a second Vanderbilt's upcoming schedule? No,
Oh,
not Duke.
It is murderer's row.
Whew.
Saturday, they host number 6 Tennessee at Memorial Gym. Next Tuesday, they are at number 4 Alabama. Next Saturday, the 25th, they host number 8 Kentucky. 3 top 10 teams in a row
We
for
show what they're
Vanderbilt.
made of on this stretch. I tell you that.
The
We will.
upside is, and I think we're still learning how much better they are. They're clearly a lot better. This is a new group. They've been in all 4 games so far. 1-2 lost to. Possession here, possession. I think we're finding out that teams like Missouri are better than people thought. I think South Carolina is probably better than people thought. They were supposed to be, I think, 15th or 16th. Vanderbilt was the other. Like, those were the bottom 2 teams. But South Carolina had Auburn on the ropes, almost beat Auburn on Saturday, led for most of the game. Even before Brune got hurt, they were leading that game. And still almost pulled it out. So it's
They got to win one of those games.
Right, that's the
They got to
thing.
win one.
2 of them are at home.
You don't have to have a winning record in this league to make the tournament. I think you could see 12 teams make the NCAA
But they're sort of
tournament.
eating their own. And I'm wondering how
Right.
much that is going to play into how many bids the
So at
SEC
the end of the day,
ultimately
you got
gets.
to get some big fish. If you can win 7 league games and it's the right 7 with the strength of schedule, that might get you in there. You're going to be right on the bubble, I think, with 7. And I think 8 wins, you're going to be in just because there's no bad teams.
If you were looking to watch some high quality college basketball over the next couple of weeks, you can find it at Vanderbilt with Tennessee coming to town on Saturday and Kentucky the following Saturday.
I wonder if, and I asked you this question yesterday. I asked y'all the question, but it was more geared toward Willie because he truly follows Vandy basketball. Other than Hogarth, like, do they got real dogs, guys that will take that? Because Hogarth will take the last shot. He's accustomed to
He
doing that.
attempted to take the last
Exactly.
shot last night. and
Do
missed,
they have
leading to
those
the rebound.
guys outside of Hogarth? Because they're going to need those guys
I
in
think it's
SEC play.
It's a good question. I think they're a little short on that. They're short of a shooter, a consistent shooter so far. I'm told they have a guy that's been injured all year long that is a good shooter. It's Clemson transfer. I forget his name. I don't know what his health status is. They could use another guy. They were 4 for 21 on their home court. They missed a lot of good looks. They probably had a chance to run it out and win easy yesterday against South Carolina. If they'd hit a couple of key threes, then they would have won easy. But 4 for 21, they've had some nights like that. I think that's a weakness, and I think they're undersized in the middle, and that's going to be a problem against the top teams in the league. But I'll tell you what, they're scrappy. They play as a team for a bunch of new guys. I love their energy. And shout out to Tyler Tanner from Brentwood Academy. Whoo! He is going to be really, really good. He's a freshman. Like, give him time. But he had a couple of plays yesterday. Ho!
That'll do it for us today. Predators, Blackhawks tonight at 7. Stillman and Company coming up next right here on 102.5, 106.3. The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a wonderful, safe, and blessed Thursday. Peace.